Well, hello and welcome. My name is Lindsay Cosma, and I am head of brand and content at FoodSmart. I'm also completing a master's of science and nutrition policy from Tufts University, as well as pursuing a dietetic license. So, as you may be able to infer, I am knee deep in nutrition, and I'm really passionate about helping people realize their best selves through the power of nutrition. We also have Claire here. So she is going to be in the chat throughout the webinar, answering questions as we go through. So hello to Claire. To that same end, so FoodSmart also virtually connects people with registered dietitians who are nutrition experts, and they provide personal nutrition support and daily tools to help make eating well simple. So before we jump in, this is very exciting. I want to let you know that by attending this webinar today, you will have a chance to win your choice between a $250 Amazon gift card or a $250 Healthy Habits bundle, which includes an all-clad pan set and some really great glass food prep containers. So all you have to do to enter is book an initial or a follow-up visit with a dietitian and using the code HABITS. And plus, if it's your first visit, you will also get $15 after your visit as well. So encourage you all to take a second to book, and Claire's going to be dropping the link to do that in the chat. You can also see it on the screen here. And of course, reach out throughout the webinar if you have any questions or issues as you are doing that. All right. So I am going to turn off the camera just to allow for a little bit better focus on the slides, and then we'll pop back on at the end for Q&A. All right, so today we're going to dive into a topic that is absolutely vital if you actually want to see lasting changes when you are pursuing any kind of health goal, especially related to nutrition, and that is developing habits that last. So we're going to review what a habit actually is, the process for forming a habit, why habits usually fail, and some practical steps and types of support that you can access to achieve your nutrition goals. So you've probably heard things like short-term or crash diets don't work, or you have to make lifestyle changes. But for as much as we hear these things, far less frequently do we hear about why they don't work and how to actually make a lifestyle change. How do we do it practically in a way that fits in with the rest of our busy life? How do we do it over time as life changes? And why is this making a lifestyle change critical to optimizing our health and nutrition? Because that's what we're here for, right? We don't want to just be healthy for a month. We want to be healthy for life. We don't want to expand, or we want to expand not just our lifespan, but our health span. So how many healthy years that we have as well. And that is what we're here to do today, to take you beyond definitions, to help you understand some of the concepts and theories behind making long-term changes, and to give you practical steps to apply them to your own goals. So what is a habit? So habits, just like how we make our coffee or our go-to recipes to cook dinner, those are not just things that we do. They're actually part of our identity. So they are choices that we have made at some point that align with or say something about who we are, who we want to be, or how we want to be perceived in the world. An example of this is, I am someone who eats candy only once a week. So maybe you identify as someone who consumes a low sugar diet. Maybe you want to be perceived as someone who doesn't indulge frequently or is more mindful of their dietary choices. And if we think about habits relating to nutrition, many start off with who we want to be. For example, I'm going to eat more vegetables because I want to lose some weight or lower my cholesterol or blood pressure, as someone said in the chat. Or they also often start off because of the way we want to be perceived. So maybe I want to set a good example for my kids. So that's identity. The other thing we need to understand is that our habits most often reflect our values. Identity does as well. So back to our example of, I am someone who only eats sugar or candy once a week. This is very likely because you value something, like maybe it's managing your blood sugar or combating your family history of diabetes, or again, setting an example of the way you want your kids to eat. See, what we do habitually represents what we care most about and what we see as meaningful. So let's assume someone cares a lot about their health. Some of their habits might include going for a run in the morning or choosing to eat breakfast every day that is full of nutritious foods that support energy and so on. So the point is, our habits are wrapped up in our identity and our values. And we can use this understanding as a way to reflect on how our habits say something about who we are and what we care about. We can begin to evaluate some of our own habits, asking, do I do this because it's who I am? Or do I do this because I am someone who values X, Y, and Z? Or does this habit reflect who I'm hoping to become in the future? And adding that layer of awareness and association helps embed those habits a little bit deeper. It gets us closer to our why. Why are we creating these habits in the first place? And over time, understanding how what you're doing is associated with your identity and values can help you make a habit a long-term one because it becomes a part of you rather than just something that you do. So let's look at a few definitions of habits. We can see phrases like acquired behavior from frequent repetition, or something that has become completely involuntary, words like usual or tendency. So basically, habits are things that we do over and over and over again to such a point that they begin to become involuntary. So going back to what we just learned, long-term habits shift from being about who we want to be to who we are. And the key to getting there is repetition. Now, this key point, this period of repetition, is most often where the breakdown of taking a habit from short-term to long-term occurs. That's in the repetition. Something breaks the cycle of repetition often enough or before that behavior can become involuntary, before it becomes who we are, while it's still just something we're doing or someone we're trying to become. And we're going to come back to this point of repetition and look at why habits fail during this period, and then go over some strategies that you can use to overcome those obstacles. Okay. So before we jump into the next part, I want to recap a little bit. So now we know what habits are, both by definition and in relationship to us, meaning how they reflect something about us, who we are, who we want to be, and what we value. And we know that to move a habit from short-term to long-term, in other words, to make that habit involuntary, that lies somewhere in the repetition. So next, I want to expand a little bit on the process of forming habits. What are the parts that make up a habitual behavior? And then we will take a look at why habits fail, specifically habits within nutrition. And finally, we'll talk about simple strategies that you can use to address each of those challenges so you can reach your nutrition goals. So let's dig into the process of forming a habit. So we'll start by looking at the structure of habits using this diagram of a habit loop. So looking at this diagram, you can see all habits can be broken down into these three basic components starting at the top. So the first one is the cue or the trigger. And this is the part of the loop where you are triggered to take some sort of action through a cue in your internal or external environment. Then you get to the action, the second part. So this is the part where you actually, of course, take action on or do something about or practice the habit that you want to either adopt or drop. And then you have the reward. So this is the part where your brain receives a reward for taking that desired activity. So let's look at an example related to nutrition. So let's say we decide we want to increase our vegetable consumption to 5 cups a day. Well, we'll want to set up a cue or a trigger. And this could be buying a variety of your favorite veggies and dips and spending time at the beginning of the week chopping them up into easy access containers, like the ones we're giving away today, for snacking throughout the week. So that's the trigger. Then we have the action. Now, every time you pass by the fridge, which is a lot if you work from home like me, you'll see those veggies before you see, say, chips or chocolate, and you'll be more likely to grab those. So you see you've set up a trigger to influence your action. And then we have the reward. And sometimes the reward can be intrinsic. So maybe it's having better digestion from more fiber or feeling accomplished for hitting your goal for a few days. But often an external reward can be powerful too. This part has to be personalized to you. Maybe rewarding yourself with a favorite treat for every, say, 5 days you hit your veggie goals, or a non-food treat. So going to see a favorite movie or getting a new book. Regardless, it's really important to give yourself something to keep the sense of accomplishment and motivation high. Okay, so now that's one completed habit cycle. Now you just have to complete this loop enough times to make that habit stick. And according to the Journal of Neuroscience, that's about 50 times. Simple enough, right? Maybe not. At this point, you may be thinking something like, okay, Lindsay, this is great. I feel like I understand why I've made some of the choices I have. I can see how some of the things I value show up in my behavior. I can even think of a habit loop I can create towards my own goals. But what happens when I lose my job, or I get sick, or I have a baby, or I'm really craving chocolate one day, or something happens and my focus has to change and I can't follow my habits the way that I had been? How can I deal with those interruptions so that I can get to those 50 repetitions and make my habits last? While all of this theory that we've learned to this point is a great foundation to understand habits, the reality is when we put these things into practice, the realities of life and our biology are going to make completing this loop really hard some days. So here's an analogy. What we've been doing so far is like building a rocket in a warehouse. We understand all the pieces, we've checked all the boxes, we know how it's supposed to function. All of this preparation, by the way, totally necessary. But now we're about to open the hatch and release it into the atmosphere, where there will be all kinds of new conditions that aren't in that warehouse: gravity, heat, speed. Now, there will be a pilot there who knows how it all works, but she won't be alone. No one can fly a rocket alone. To make it out to our destination, in other words, to reach our goal, we need a co-pilot. And this co-pilot has to have dense, specific knowledge of the inner workings of that rocket, and they can help steer the pilot in the right direction as those conditions change. So while you were the pilot, the driving force behind your habits, you now need your co-pilot. And this is where a FoodSmart registered dietitian comes in. So what is a dietitian? Let's meet your co-pilot. A registered dietitian is the only nutrition expert who is clinically trained and licensed to provide individualized medical nutrition therapy. They go through undergraduate and now, as a requirement, graduate level training, plus 1,200 hours of internship, a standardized exam, so they are equipped to understand the variety of nuances of your health and how to give you personalized guidance to meet your goals. Now, the value here can't be overstated. Nutrition is highly individual. So even if you take something maybe straightforward seeming like weight loss, while you may be able to find some general guidance on the internet, things like hormones and health conditions like diabetes, insulin resistance, autoimmune, or other chronic conditions, gut health issues, all of those things can play a role in your ability to lose weight. And a dietitian understands how to adapt a nutrition plan specific to you and your health fingerprint to help you achieve those goals. And this is in contrast to, say, a nutritionist or a health coach, or even many doctors who don't receive this kind of standardized nutrition education and credentialing. Now, I don't know about you, but I want the most experienced and educated co-pilot helping me fly my rocket. And again, this is why FoodSmart connects you exclusively with dietitians, and we do it virtually so that you can meet on your schedule and get personalized nutrition advice. We work with a huge number of health insurance plans and employers across the country to bring this to you for as low as $0. So again, as a reminder, if you haven't yet scheduled a visit with a dietitian, today is a great time to do so. And again, if you schedule today, you have access to win one of those $250 prizes that can help you jumpstart your habits. So I know Claire has dropped the link in the chat. So if you have any questions as you're going through, just reach out to her there and she can help you. Okay, let's get back to habits. So you are flying through space, you're piloting your rocket, you've got your dietitian as your co-pilot, and you start to encounter some turbulence. Now, if you recall earlier when we were talking about habits, there are two main types of interferences that can prevent us from getting to those 50 repetitions and allowing us to reach the goal planet, aka solidifying our long-term. And those are internal and external circumstances. Now, there's a variety of these, so we will only focus on a few that relate to nutrition habits and health goals specifically. Internal circumstances, in this case, means our biology. So specifically, things like our hunger cues, our mental health, our hormones, our overall health, all of these factors affect our hunger, what kind of foods we crave, what kind of foods we need to support our biology and our functions of our body. For example, if we're trying to create a habit of only eating sugar once a week, like many of you were mentioning in the chat, but we're really stressed, or for women, we're at a certain time in our hormonal cycle, those things will affect cravings. And often we crave carbs and sugars, which release dopamine, which is the happy, euphoric hormone in our brains. So our biology then is going to offer a pretty big reward for indulging in that sugar. That reward might be stronger than the reward that you were going to give yourself for sticking to your habit, making it really hard to complete our habit loop. Luckily, though, you've got your co-pilot, aka your dietitian, who is an expert on the relationship between your biology and your nutrition. So they can help you as these things come up and develop strategies to manage these interferences so that you can stay the course. Now, of course, we also have external circumstances like some of the ones I mentioned, losing your job or having a baby. Um, so for today's example, I want to focus on two big ones, and that's time and money. So despite best laid plans, if your financial situation changes, that creates some stress, right? So let's say you wanted to make a habit of eating eggs for breakfast as a good source of protein, but then maybe the price of eggs reaches $9, hypothetically, of course, and that might make you reconsider or unable to stick to that habit. Or maybe you might want to make a home cooked meal every day of the week for dinner, but then there's, say, a global pandemic, and now your kids are at home all day. So who has the time? Again, thank goodness you have your co-pilot in place, your dietitian. He or she can help you come up with alternatives, like finding another affordable protein source for breakfast, or teaching you skills to make quick, healthy meals that make the most of leftovers so that you can get food on the table. So again, despite the circumstances, which are unique and inevitably changing, your dietitian can help you change course as needed. Because of their clinical knowledge, they can ensure those detours lead you to the ultimate goal in a way that is safe and effective for you. All right. So, in addition to those internal habits, in addition to those internal and external factors, James Clear, author of best-selling book Atomic Habits, suggests that habits fail for the following reasons. So, number one, trying to change everything at once. Number two, starting with a habit that is too big. Number three, focusing on the result rather than the ritual or process. And number four, not changing your environment. And number five, assuming those small changes don't add up or getting discouraged. So as we go through, I want to quickly go through each of these points of failure using common nutrition habit examples and offer some tips to help you overcome them and show you how a dietitian can help even further individualize those solutions for you. Okay, so let's look at the first one, changing too many things all at once. So an example here, let's say you want to adopt the Mediterranean diet overnight or tomorrow when you're used to living off of fried foods. Now, this is a great habit to work towards, but totally overhauling your diet at once is a recipe for a disaster. Whether you realize it, your current dietary pattern consists of lots and lots of little habits that you'd be breaking and redefining all at once. So instead, start with one meal or food group, like swapping burgers for grilled fish and veggies for dinner one night a week. And once you get the hang of a new recipe or two, maybe you try moving it to 2 dinners and then 3 and then so forth and so on. So your dietitian can help spend time understanding your current diet and needs and suggest specific habits that you can incorporate and help you adjust along the way. Number 2, starting with a habit that is too big. So the most difficult part of a new habit is actually starting the behavior. So creating something that feels really hard or takes a lot of effort is less likely you're going to do it, right? I'm not going to go from running not at all to running 4 miles a day. It's probably not going to happen. And why not? Because you've just created a really big ask for yourself every single day. So the tip here is to make it so easy that you can't say no. New habits should be non-threatening. So starting with a behavior that's so small, it seems easy and reasonable to do each day is the key to success. So start by going for a 30-minute walk every day, and then move to a short run once a week and build it from there. If you remember that a habit loop, doing it this way will create a lot of little rewards for yourself and keep motivation high. And of course, you can take it even further in this particular example by meeting with a dietitian who can support your specific fitness goals whether that be training for a race or trying out for a new sport, starting weightlifting, they can tailor a program that will ensure you have optimal nutrition no matter your fitness goal. Okay. Number 3, focusing on the result and not the ritual or process. So let's say you want to lose 30 pounds in 6 months. So you're consistently thinking about losing that large amount of weight, how your clothes will fit, or how you'll feel when you get there. We're naturally outcome focused, which can be motivating, but it can actually hinder results sometimes because it takes the focus away from the behavior that we need to do to actually reach that ultimate goal. So the tip here is to focus more on those day-to-day behaviors than the outcome. So instead of focusing on how much weight you want to lose, focus on a few lifestyle changes that you can make that will move you in the right direction. The eating more fiber and protein, the moving your body more and drinking more water. You can even keep a journal of these, which again will give you consistent wins to keep you motivated. Your dietitian can help you create those small behavior changes that will help you reach your goal and help you stay motivated and be an accountability partner at every visit. Number 4, not changing your environment. So let's say that you want to reduce the amount of chips that you consume, but you just bought a Costco-sized box of your favorite chips. You've just created a really tough environment for yourself to meet your goal. Our habits and behaviors are often a result of the environment that we find ourselves in. So the tip here, of course, is to build an environment that creates those good habits. So if you do the grocery shopping for the family, perhaps limiting the amount of chips you buy, or consider even getting your family on board if the habit would be beneficial for everyone. You can also ask others to keep the chips out of view, because if your environment doesn't change, it is likely that you won't either. And your dietitian, of course, can be there along the way to help you come up with strategies for yourself and your family to set you up for success. Right. And number 5, so assuming small changes don't add up. So an example here is, let's say you're setting a goal to lower your cholesterol by 50 milligrams of mercury, and you actually only end up lowering it by 10. This is where many people get discouraged, understandably, and think, oh, I failed because I didn't get to 50, I only got to 10. But it's important to remember that small progress is progress. So the tip here is remembering that small choices made consistently over time can create those big results and building the behavior first and worrying about the results later is the key to success here. Habits don't need to be big to matter. So it's important that you celebrate those small wins. And your dietitian can take a look at what that ultimate goal is. So maybe it's that lowering your cholesterol by 50 and help you come up with what are those daily changes that you need to make that can help you reach that goal ultimately. Okay. So that was a lot of information. So let's give a quick recap. So my hope today is that you have a better understanding of what habits are beyond just things that we do, and that you can distinguish habits as behaviors that help us reach your goals. I also hope that you can now identify some of your habits and how they relate to your identity and your values. And if they don't, maybe reevaluate whether those habits are some that you want to keep. I also hope that you understand how to form habit loops. So remember that cue, setting up the cue and that trigger, going through that action, and then giving yourself some kind of reward. And understanding how repeating that loop over and over again, ultimately 50 times, right? That helps move a habit from becoming a short-term one to a long-term one. I also hope you understand and recognize some of the major issues that can get in the way of completing those repetitions and the importance of a dietitian as a co-pilot or a partner to support you along the way there. And lastly, I hope that you've got an idea of some of the big reasons that many habits fail and some strategies that you can use to overcome them. So one of those strategies that FoodSmart has come up with recently is this new tool to help you even further with some of these habit repetitions. And these are our focused condition and goal specific nutrition programs. We focus on topics like healthy weight, gut health, heart health, and so much more. And these are customized to you by your dietitian. but they also provide a guide with weekly educational topics and dietitian visits, and that can help jumpstart your progress. So you can inquire more about these and which may be right for you during your visit with a dietitian. Again, scheduling today using that promo code HABITS. Okay, so Q&A time. I know I just went through a lot of information pretty fast, so I'm going to open up the Q&A and see if any good questions have come in. And I will turn my camera back on this just so we can have more of a conversation. All right. Let's see. These are some great questions. One of the first ones I see is, what are some good habits for weight loss? It's a great one. So, there are a variety of strategies for weight loss, and it is usually a very individualized approach. But some general habits include eating nutrient-dense variety of proteins and veggies and fiber-rich carbs. And this keeps your body functioning properly. It keeps you satiated. It allows you to maintain muscle, all very important for keeping your body healthy and your metabolism up and your hormones balanced. Some other good habits are things that reduce your stress, right? Probably heard that one before. And I know that's easier said than done. But if you're chronically stressed, then your body perceives that as a danger. And if it's gonna hold on to whatever you got to help protect yourself. So it's a really natural response. So the more that we can reduce our stress, keep our body out of that sympathetic, really fight or flight nervous system, and into more of a relaxed state more often, the better your body and the more easily your body is going to let go of any extra weight that you're trying to lose. Moving throughout the day. So I know Claire mentioned this one, but maybe it's taking quick walks or getting your step count up closer to 8,000, 9,000, 10,000 steps. It's a great way to just increase your movement and your overall metabolism and kind of shift that balance a little bit. I know recently I've gotten one of the walking pads that you put under your desk. We have kind of a team going at Food Smart, and we hold each other accountable to different walking goals, and that's been really great. So that's a great one, just getting more movement throughout the day. And then this is maybe a little less, I guess, referenced, but getting your gut health in check. So gut health issues, and there are so many of those, right? That can cause your body to hang on to weight, and it can make it tough to lose. There's a lot of really complex reasons for this. I probably don't have time to get into all of those, but we actually have a series coming up on that called the Mind Gut Connection. So you can be on the lookout for that as well, in addition to our gut health specific program that we just shared in the last slide. And again, the great thing about a dietitian here is, let's say you wanted to lose weight, but you also have gut health issues. We have 2 programs there for that, but your dietitian can create a custom program just for you. So, yeah, hopefully those are some helpful tips just on general things that you can do to lose weight. Obviously, it's a very individualized approach that you should take, but yeah, I hope that helps. Let's see what else we got. I heard it takes 6 weeks to form a new habit. Is that true? Yeah, I read that as well. So there was a variety of different things on number of repetitions, which is the example I used, but also over the course of 6 weeks. I think there is some good research on that as well. Let's see. I see a couple of things about removing foods or dietary changes. So building new habits when you have a dietary change, like going gluten-free from celiac. Yeah. Okay. So going back to some of the strategies that we talked about, I would probably start by changing your environment. So removing those gluten-containing foods from your pantry, and importantly, refilling it with gluten-free options that you really like. And obviously, if you have celiac, this is probably something you want to change all at once versus over time. Because it would obviously be harmful if you continue to eat gluten, but you can definitely start by changing your environment and giving yourself a lot of yummy options that you can reach for. You can still start small though. So maybe if you're used to having toast with your breakfast, just simply swapping the bread, right? So you can still maintain all of the little habits and the kind of ritual that you have around the breakfast that you're used to consuming, but maybe this time you're just swapping the bread. So you're not making that big of a change in your daily life, but you're still kind of forming that new habit. And if we go back to thinking about habit loops, maybe you are putting gluten-free snack options front and center in the same spot where your regular, crackers or bread used to be, and you are then helping make that action really simple. So you're going to the same place, but you've got the swap ready for you right there. And the reward here is likely intrinsic if we're talking about celiac, so meaning you would experience less symptoms after eating. So that's a good one. And it's a tough one. Making new dietary changes are hard because we get really, wrapped up in our dietary patterns. Again, they reflect our identity, they reflect what we value, and we have to change that. It can be really difficult, but I think following some of those strategies can help. Let's see. Sugar. Yeah, let's talk about the sugar one because I know that came up a lot in our original question in the chat. So, struggling to say no and tending to overindulge on sugar. And then I remember there was one specifically around, struggling craving carbs early in the morning or sugars early in the morning. So, this is a really great example of one of those internal circumstances that we talked about. Our biology, like our hormones and our insulin levels in this case, those really factor in to what we're doing. So we can say, I want to maybe limit my sugar, or maybe not have sugar early in the morning, but we're really craving it. So the tricky thing about sugar is that the more that you eat it, the more you crave it. So let's say you eat something really sweet, that spikes your blood sugar or your glucose really, really high. And then your body releases insulin really, really high to take that blood sugar and put it into your cells, your muscles, give your body the energy it needs, right? So then that glucose falls right back down, but your insulin's really high. And so your blood sugar goes down a little more than it should. And so that's something you've maybe heard of called a blood sugar crash. And that makes you crave sugar again to get your blood sugar back up to the level that's normal. So you can see that cycle, you started with the craving, now you've got a craving again. We've all probably experienced that. Over time, this can lead to something called insulin resistance, which can ultimately potentially lead to diabetes. And that's kind of how that all starts. So it's those continual spikes and crashes of sugar. And of course, this is absolutely not to demonize sugar. I love sugar. Like I said, that was one of my things as well. And your body needs it, right? But it's just, I think it's in the nuance of how we consume sugar versus, whether or not to consume it. So that's sort of the biological response when you eat it, and that makes it really hard. Also, eating sugar releases dopamine and serotonin in your brain. So again, giving you a reward that's pretty strong. And makes you feel really great. So your biology makes this really hard. One habit I think you can try to focus on to help control some of those blood sugar spikes in the first place before you create that chain of cravings is to start your day with something savory. And by savory, I mean, not sweet. So thinking, maybe it's a good source of protein, some veggies like an egg scramble and a piece of toast or sweet potatoes or that type of breakfast rather than, super sweet pancakes with maple syrup and a bunch of fruit and that sort of thing. Again, really yummy, but maybe just not an everyday thing. But what that does is you are starting your day with something that has a lot of fiber and protein and healthy fats. All of those slow down that absorption of sugar. So you're not getting as big of a spike. And so you're minimizing those spikes and dips throughout the day. So you're setting yourself up early in the day to have a more stable blood sugar throughout the day, which can help you with some of those sugar cravings. And if sugar is something that you struggle with, your dietitian can be really supportive in helping you learn to manage this. It's a really complex thing. And, we're kind of swimming uphill or upstream, I guess, against sugar cravings because of how our biology and our body reacts. So I'm with you. That can be a really tough one, but hopefully that tip can help. It's actually helped me personally. So yeah. And of course, your dietitian can help even more. All right. I think we might have time for one more question. Let's see. Eating Thyroid disease. Yeah. Will eating naturally help regulate thyroid disease? Don't want to go back on medication. So I can touch on this quickly and try to relate it to a habit. The answer is yes, it can certainly help. Of course, giving your body the vitamins and minerals and nutrition that it needs can help your levels of inflammation. And when you have thyroid disease or any sort of autoimmune type of response, inflammation is kind of a big factor there. So the more you can reduce that, which you certainly can do via diet, can help improve that. So yeah, I would adopt, maybe check back and look at some of the healthy habits, like including more fiber, more polyphenol rich foods, more really colorful fruit and vegetables, especially kind of dark purple or blue. So blueberries, different dark eggplants, kale, like that, those sorts of colors can be really helpful in fighting inflammation. So maybe for that one, just working on a habit that incorporates some more of those things can help. And again, your dietitian, of course, is an expert when you're talking about specific health conditions like thyroid disease. All right. I think we might be able to squeeze maybe one more. Hello, Claire. Thanks
Okay,
for joining.
on camera for the end.
Yeah. We talked about removing problematic foods. Yeah. So there's one about exercise. I don't know if you said you joined a little bit late, so I'm not sure if you heard the tip around that, but one of the issues with exercise, like other things, is you'll have a really good streak for a few days or weeks and then you kind of fall off, right? So that happens a lot. And one of that is actually one of maybe the third or fourth reason that most habits fail. So to combat that, I think we talked about starting small. So you don't list what type of exercise that you're doing, but maybe versus being kind of all or nothing, like I am on my exercise routine or I'm not on my exercise routine. Maybe it's, this is the goal, but I'm going to focus on, maybe I did get a walk in that day, or maybe I did go for a run, even if it's shorter than I wanted. And just continuing those sorts of patterns and behaviors on a consistent basis ultimately can help you reach your goals. So that applies for exercise and nutrition. And of course, your dietitian can help support on the nutrition front, depending on what your exercise program is. So yeah, I think hopefully that helped answer some of your questions. Those are really good ones, and they're definitely some of the more common and more difficult ones as well. So like I said a bunch of times throughout this webinar, your dietitian is really your co-pilot through all of this. They can be there to help you when things change, when you're having struggles, to help keep you accountable, help keep you motivated, remind you of all the great progress that you have made, and help adapt your plan as needed so that you're getting to your ultimate goal. So don't forget, if you haven't yet, please reach out, follow the link that Claire's dropped in the chat, and schedule a visit with your dietitian. And if you do that today, so same day as the webinar, you will be entered to win that $250 prize that hopefully can help you jumpstart some really healthy habits, because it's some pretty great stuff. So with that, just thank you all for coming. I hope that you got something out of this webinar. You helped learn how to take some of your habits from short-term to long-term. And yeah, thank you all so much.
Bye, everyone. We'll see you next time.